All right, everybody. Eli, the travel guy Facenda, is a travel loving entrepreneur with a passion for maximizing credit card points for world travel experiences. Eli has traveled to 40 different countries over the last 5 years. He is the founder of Freedom Travel Systems, where he and his team help travel loving business owners maximize luxury travel on points without the headache or the wasted time trying to figure it out. Eli, super happy to have you here. Welcome to the show.
Awesome, Matt. Thanks for having me on. Excited to dive in and hopefully add some new ideas and inspiration to people about how they can leverage their credit card spend and travel more efficiently and enjoy more of these amazing travel experiences available to us.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm super excited for this. It's a very unique conversation, something that we've never really done on this podcast before, but it's very intriguing for myself and a lot of other people because everybody loves to travel. They love experiencing new destinations. They love to do it efficiently. And if we could do it luxury, that's the best part. So I want to kind of dive into what you have done to accumulate this experience and how you've leveraged all the credit card points and everything. But first, where did your passion for travel come in? How did you start this?
Yeah, it's a funny question because we were just talking before this kind of about the sports background.
Mm-hmm.
And my first ever experience really with travel was actually being invited to play on a baseball team that was going down to the Dominican Republic when I was 16. We were representing the US and we were competing down there playing against local Dominican teams. And it was like family vacation plus sports trip. And it was really on that trip that my eyes were opened to the world at large. And I remember specifically because it was the conduit of baseball. So I got to like meet these kids and have this like real local connection in addition to the incredible beauty that, me and my family got to enjoy when we were in the DR. And I just remember being so curious. And that was really the driving force for me, was just this curiosity about the world at large. Like, man, like this is what's in the Dominican. This is how these kids live. Like we're playing baseball and we have everything and they have nothing yet. They're happier than us. Like this doesn't make any sense. What's going on? And it just gave me this thirst to be like, I have to go see more of the world. Like this is so cool. So then I wanted to study abroad in college. And that was like a semester of, I don't know if you got to do the abroad experience or not, but basically, like I was in Barcelona every other weekend. You're in another country around Europe, having incredible experiences with friends, like learning some cool history, experiencing a culture, like all of these amazing experiences. And honestly, I was just hooked, changed my worldview. And I feel like I got a lot broader of a perspective of like what's available, different cultural values, different ways of life, different things that you can really take and then adopt into your own life and be like, hey, this is how Europeans do X, Y, and Z. And I feel like I actually really resonate with that. Like I want to incorporate more of that into my life. And it gave me a little bit more freedom to feel like I was choosing and creating the life that I wanted more intentionally rather than just kind of giving what was handed to me. So travel kind of blew me open, but curiosity was the initial kind of driver for me. And I was hooked ever since and have had the fortune to work in the travel industry for about 8 years with a tour company and then my points and credit consulting business as well.
That's super cool. How have you learned some experiences that have helped you in the business world from your travel experiences from a young age?
Man, so many, so many. One of the biggest ones is the networking capacity, because when you're traveling, first off, there's the idea of being like a solo traveler, which I think everyone should experience at some point, because what it does is it puts you in a position where like you are at cause in every situation, meaning, you don't just have a bunch of friends that are just like making things happen for you. You don't have an itinerary that's designed for you. You don't have any like maybe sort of event that like everything's catered and like you're going to naturally just meet people. So you end up going, you're like, wow, if I don't make something happen, this is going to be boring. Like I have to take charge here and be like, I need to create my own fun. I need to create my own connections. Some people might come up to me, but a lot of people probably aren't. So if I want to have a fun experience of life on this trip, I'm going to go create it. But when you do that, and then you tap into your own resourcefulness and your own creativity, and like you're willing to get a little vulnerable, maybe uncomfortable, like striking up conversations with strangers, it can be kind of weird for a lot of people at first. You feel so free because you're like, wow, I can do anything. I can meet anybody. And that translated a lot into the networking side for travel. Especially when I started doing more luxury travel, you're getting access to free airport lounges and first class flights and staying in nice hotels. And you're just around a lot of, business owners and C-suite executives, people that are really doing amazing things that can become mentors for you, depending on where you're at in your career, or just good business connections, or just great people. And when you have that skill set of putting yourself in the right environment, meaning you're around these people, close proximity, and you feel comfortable going up and striking up conversations and saying, hey, you know what, I might look like a little bit of a dumbass here, but I'm going to go ahead and like say what's up to this person anyways. That becomes really palpable, exciting, fun, and valuable as a skill set. And so I've created so many great connections that have kind of connected the dots for the business that I now have, just amazing relationships along the way. And it's the people that you meet, in my experience, that are going to ultimately shift the way you see the world and then help you make different decisions that will get you to where you want to go. So that was one of the most invaluable skill sets. I think it's very overlooked because most people just, think about going on a trip and they're like, I'm at the airport, headbuds in, nose down. I'm just going to do my thing. I'm going to watch a movie. And you're missing on so many opportunities for connections and personal growth where like, hey, maybe this feels a little uncomfortable. That's an opportunity for you to step into some of the discomfort that you might be feeling and like kind of break free from that. So that's a big piece of travel, I think was huge for me and can be really big for others too.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because I feel like that is very underrated when you look at success and who you want to surround yourself with. When you're traveling, it's not always going to be a person that you find at like a diner or a small coffee shop. You're going to want to go to like the bigger, more luxury places for that. Like I heard an example once is like if you're going to be traveling and buy a cup of coffee for $2 at, let's say, Dunkin', you can also go to a 5-star hotel and get in the lobby there. The coffee might be $10, but you're surrounded by success. Even if you don't talk to anyone, you're inspired. So now, for your instance, you're around the 5-star hotels, the lounges, all these great successful people around you that you're just immersing yourself into it. It's much different experience than if you were just to go to like a Holiday Inn and stay overnight.
Totally, man. Yeah, you nailed it. And that was like the first experience I ever really had flying on a luxury flight. It was a game changer for that reason. Obviously, like getting a bed versus a chair is awesome. Like
yeah, that's sick.
When you get on a plane and you get to turn left and instead of turning right, you go to the business and first class section instead of the economy section. You never want to go back on a plane and turn right again. But ultimately, it's funny because you'll start to see all these weird emotions and stories and beliefs start to come up when you do that. Like, I don't belong here. I'm in over my head. Like, what am I doing? This is awkward. Like, everyone's looking at me. In reality, no one cares because they're all concerned with themselves. But at the end of the day, you start to upgrade, just what feels normal for you, what you believe that you can have or deserve, or what you can do, who you can connect with, who you can even add value to. Because for a while, it's like you might be in that setting, but it's like, I have nothing to add, right? But that's not true. You might have some really valuable stuff that could be supportive to someone else there. And that was a big piece of the first ever international first class trip I got. I just remember being like, this is where I want to be going. Like, I want to be around these people. I want to be able to take my life in a direction that I choose. And that was just like a mind blower for me. So same thing with the hotel game, but the flight is going to be, for a lot of people that have never really done it before, that's the biggest contrast. Because at this point, I was like probably 23 or 24, and I was making like 30 something $1,000 a year. And the ticket was like a $7,000 ticket, but I paid $5.60. So it was like a ticket that would have cost like a fifth of my salary at the time. I ended up paying $5, and now I'm around all these awesome people. I'm in a totally new experience. And that just opened me up to thinking like, what else is possible? And so, I think you're nailing it with like the environment and how important that can be while traveling.
That's super cool. And going to talk about the first class, when I was growing up, I always had like the grand thought of like, okay, what's going to be like when you finally fly first class? And you always think about like that experience. And then it was a couple of years ago, I got upgraded, but it was a flight from Philly to Cincinnati. It was like an hour and a half flight. I was like, this is my first taste of it. It wasn't even like they barely served drinks or anything. It was like nothing. I was like, come on, I thought it was going to be bigger.
Yeah, totally. It really depends on where you're flying first class. And once you start doing like the big international routes, there's a difference between business and first class when you're flying domestic, and kind of get confusing for people. But I mean, that's technically first class, but in the same category, you could be flying to Dubai like I did last May and getting a shower on the plane. You have a bar, you're drinking Dom Perignon, truffle mac and cheese, like tuna tartare, like ribeye, like that whole thing. It's crazy too. Yeah. So technically it's both first class, but they're not the same. So
very, very different.
Yeah. So I hear what you're saying. And I remember the same thing. It happens all the time for people. We have a lot of clients that when they come to us, like, I've been getting first class, but it's not the experience I thought. Well, sometimes certain routes are only operated by certain aircrafts. And if you're flying on a local domestic plane, a lot of times it's not going to be that mind blower, but even sometimes domestically, you can find some really good stuff. If you're going like LA to East Coast, that kind of thing, you can find some good routes for sure.
That's cool. I know you've been to a lot of different locations, many different countries. Is there one place that stands out? Is there a top 5? What are your favorite spots?
Yeah, great question. So I definitely have a handful that really do stand out. So the one that to me is the most different universe, so I've been to 42 countries right now, but just like different worlds, Japan. I've been 3 times. Okay. Unbelievable. Like just culturally, it's a mind blower. And like I've been to Thailand, I've been to places in Africa, the Middle East. And what I find that's great about Japan is like a lot of these other countries, they kind of have become westernized and adapted to what's going to be good for tourists. And while there's aspects of that for Japan, the majority of the time you're there, it's like you're in Japan, like they're speaking Japanese, they're doing their cultural values, like you adapt to their cultural and values and lifestyle. And it's really fascinating. Society runs so well. The food's impeccable. The people are unbelievably kind. So that's just a really cool one. Like if you want to go to a place where you're like, oh my God, I'm in a different universe right now. Like that's a place you got to
Okay.
go. Costa Rica is just a beautiful one, just like so relaxing and chill. Like I don't know if there's any place that's more chill to me than Costa Rica in terms of just having like the rainforest and the beaches there.
Mm-hmm.
And then yeah, I mean Barcelona's got a special place in my heart as well. I studied abroad there. I think it's one of the best mixes of like European metropolitan cities, beach lifestyle, good food, good atmosphere, great weather, like really nice people, very relatively affordable. So in terms of like most livable place overseas I've been to so far, that's probably number one. And yeah, I mean I could go on, but those are a few. I actually just went to the pyramids
Oh wow.
about a month ago right now. That was a mind blower.
Yeah, I bet.
You don't need to go for long, in my opinion, to go to Egypt, but like, wow, when you start to see some of the history, man, it's like, it's crazy. It's really
Mm-hmm.
nuts to think how old some of these pyramids are, how many of them there are, like where the stones came. It's just it's a complete mind melting experience. So definitely recommend going to the pyramids and hiring a really good guide
Okay.
for that, because if you go to some of these places, like a lot of people will go and they'll just look at it and be like, oh, that's the Great Pyramid, cool. But
Yeah.
if you get like a good guide and you're able to do like a one-on-one tour and they're explaining it and you're getting Q&A, that's where the real epiphany moments happen, is when you kind of get to immerse yourself deeper into wherever you are. So highly suggest that as well.
Awesome. That's incredible. So you're doing all this traveling, you're going to many different locations with credit card points and travel hacking. How does it work? Can you explain to the audience how you make this work?
Yeah, so there's a few main steps that you want to think about when you're trying to understand this. But the first thing that you should know is that in the US, we are so lucky because there's this amazing credit card system where every time you spend $1 on anything, there's an opportunity to earn points, and these points can be used for travel. Now, most people have some idea about this. They've heard about frequent flyer miles, or they've heard about credit card points or travel points or cash back, but they haven't really realized there's a way to really essentially game the system and kind of beat the banks at their own game, ethically, legally, all that stuff. But it's simply by being really efficient with the cards you use and then how you use your points. So even if you do have some awareness around this, the vast majority of people that know that this exists don't realize they're doing it wrong. So I'll break down some of that here so you can start to understand how this works. But what's really, really important to also understand is this applies for anybody. We work with a lot of business owners. They tend to spend a lot, they travel a lot, and they're really busy, so they can't figure this out on their own. But totally available for anyone that's, a college student, someone that's trying to start a digital nomad lifestyle, someone that's a 9-to-5er, someone that's got a family. It applies to everybody. It's just how you would play the game is going to be custom tailored to you. And when I first started out, that ticket I mentioned earlier, where I was flying to Europe and it was a business class ticket, and I was making like $35K a year. I was only spending like $1,000 a month at that point on credit cards, and I was still able to get 10, 15, 20K a year. Nowadays, I'm spending more like 25, 30,000 in my business per month, but I'm able to get 100 to 150K through maximizing this. But overall, three main things you want to think about is number one, get the right cards and spend on the right cards and the right things, because not all points are created equal. Not all cards are going to be the best for different purchases. And you need to set yourself up to win, because if you have the wrong points, you're not going to be able to do any of this stuff. So there's certain points we can talk about, like which ones are the right ones. The second piece is going to be to upgrade and enhance your travel experience on the day-to-day. So this means making sure you're maximizing the benefits and status that you can get through using these cards. So getting lounge access is a free perk. Getting TSA pre-check and clear when you're going through the airport, that's a free perk. Getting free bags when you fly, that's a free perk. Getting upgrades at hotels into suites, free perk. Getting early check-in, late checkout, getting free breakfast, free Wi-Fi. Again, the lounges are a big one while traveling there in airports, car rental upgrades. All of these things, the levers that you can pull on that just make the experience amazing and turn travel from sometimes feeling like a headache to an enjoyment. Like when you do this right, you're getting a free Uber ride to the airport. You get to the airport, you skip through security, you don't pay for bags, you go to a lounge and get champagne, and then you end up getting, free first class. And you go to a hotel where you can check in when you want to and have an upgrade to a suite. Like that's what's available. It's not that complicated for really anyone to piece together. But that is ultimately what you can do when you upgrade the lifestyle. And then the third piece is actually using your points more effectively. So the way that most people will use their points is they're going to go to like the bank's travel website, the bank travel portal, like Amex Travel or Chase Travel or whatever. And they're going to get a fixed value out of the points they have. But when they have the right strategies, this is really what we help do for clients and we teach in our programs and courses, is how do you take the points you have and get anywhere from 5 to 10 times the value. So I'll give one quick example and then we can kind of carry on here. But let's say someone had 100,000 points, right? Well, in scenario A, those points, if they're going to Amazon, are going to be worth like $600. Okay. If they go to Amex Travel, they're worth like $1,000. If they use them effectively the way that we're talking about, they can be worth $5,000 or $10,000.
Wow.
Right. So just a change of how you're using the points you already have unlocks all this travel. And that's why a lot of people look at me and be like, you must be spending crazy amounts. And I do have a business that spends a decent amount, but at the end of the day, the reason I'm able to get so much value is because I don't waste points and I'm able to use them really optimally. And that's a huge, huge key to this game. So, so to summarize, get the right cards and spend on the right things, get the status and the benefits and maximize that, and then use your points at a much better value. And that's really the three key components of doing this well for anyone from college student to digital nomad to, huge business owner to, mom with 4 kids.
Yeah, for sure. How'd you learn about this? Was this like trial and error? Did you have someone teach you?
So it's funny because when I started out, again, I was building that tour company that I kind of mentioned earlier. We were growing. We didn't have, a lot of extra cash left over at the end of the month per se when we were first starting out, right? And so I wanted to travel. It was a huge passion for me. And the company was going to be, spending a lot of money on travel. So I figured I had heard about it on a podcast back in like 2013, before podcasts were even cool. Like I was like the nerd listening to a podcast on, it was so funny. But I heard about it and I was like, this is cool. And then I remember thinking like, I need to take this trip with my friends. And it was like a 10-person trip to Thailand. And I couldn't afford the flight. And I was like, I have to figure this out. So I started putting together the whole credit card game plan, made a ton of mistakes, completely screwed everything up. It took me years to really piece it together because I was doing it the hard way. I was reading, credit card websites like the Points Guy. I was watching YouTube videos. I was reading blogs. I was literally like checking out, bank pages. And I didn't really have a good system or roadmap to follow. Until a few years later, I ended up taking a course, and it was like, overnight, I was able to like get way better results with this. But I started out just learning, trial by error and reading basically online. But it was that general desire, like I've got to find a better way to travel and become a little more resourceful with how I get these experiences. And I had a mentor, a guy named Peter Sage, who's an incredible guy, and he had told me, I think it might be like a Tony Robbins quote, but he was like, the ultimate resource is resourcefulness. And so it's like all about asking yourself better questions. And I was just, I knew with the business where I was at that time, I wasn't going to have a lot of extra income to be able to take the trips I wanted, but I was like, there's got to be a better way. And the credit card points thing ended up being this avenue into that. And what started as kind of this like need for travel turned into, getting some really cool travel. Then it became like a passion because I was like, this is insane. And then like an obsession, and then a hobby, and then kind of like a brand, and then a full-on business. And we've got like 12 team members now and the whole thing. So kind of crazy how it unfolded, honestly.
Yeah, that's amazing. What would your advice be to someone who, let's say they're in their 20s, they either want to become an entrepreneur, they want to start their own business, or they want to get into a career, like one of the two, but they're just starting out? How would they get involved in this and get to where you are someday?
Sure. So when you're starting out, it's important to understand the larger framework of how this all works, because you're dealing with credit, right? Which means you want to keep your credit score really good in the process of doing this. And that's a big hesitation and concern a lot of people have, is like, wouldn't this tank my credit score if I open up a bunch of credit cards? And there's a right and a wrong way to do this. So you need to understand the 5 factors of credit and how that impacts, getting a new card or not. And also how business credit cards work. This is one of the biggest mysteries to a lot of people starting out, is how business credit cards play into this, because the vast majority, most people don't know this, but the vast majority of business credit cards don't show up on your personal credit report. So what does that mean? That means that if you open a business credit card and you get approved, let's say it's a $10,000 or $15,000 credit card with a zero limit, with a 0% interest rate for the first 12 months, you could essentially max that card out for the 12 months and use the money on that card to start or scale a business and get the points that you're going to get from the spend and the sign-up bonus, and use those points for travel. And that can be what drives you to be able to invest in a coach or a course or a program or mentorship, or invest in new inventory or whatever you need to get started. And you can leverage that to get your business off the ground, because it's a much faster, easier, and lower cost way to get the financing that you're looking for, the capital that you're looking for. And that can give you a trajectory into growth. Now, the key with that is you have to be very honest with yourself. You have to be able to be willing to understand where your risk tolerance is for, basically taking on debt for that. But if you do it at a 0% interest rate and you have a really good plan to be able to say, hey, if I take out $10,000 today and I invest it into the company, and that means in a year I'll have $30,000 and I can pay back the 10, smart investment. But if you do it and you buy a TV and new shoes, not very good. So that's a way to get started with this, would be looking at first understanding all of credit. How does business credit card, how do business credit cards play into this? Figuring out your game plan of like what your goals are. But I always recommend, first thing that I would suggest for anyone to do that's new to this is start with one specific trip in mind if they're looking more for the travel side, and make it a big trip. Stretch yourself a little bit on like what you think is possible. Make it a first class trip to Europe if you've never flown first class, and just stretch what you think is possible, stretch what you think is available and like normal to you. I personally, this is my philosophy. When it comes to this, someone might say, well, I could take 3 domestic trips or 1 first class trip. Personally, I'm not saying this for everyone, screw practicality in this sense. go for the big experience that's going to totally level up your life, level up your mindset, because once you taste that, you're not going to want to go back.
Yeah.
And then what's going to happen is you're going to start to look for other ways in your life to start to meet that as a new standard. If you go for 3 extra domestic economy trips, awesome. You've had a lot more travel experience, and that's beautiful too. And if that's what you want, go for it. But for me, the way to really use this as a way to grow is the stuff that's a little bit like nerve-wracking and exciting, but like you're pumped. And that to me is a sign like that's the direction you want to go in. So that's how I would get started if I was just getting into this. But there's all these different avenues you can kind of go down from there.
Yeah, that's awesome. What are the coolest things you've done with your credit card points? You mentioned the lounges, the first class. Are there anything other avenues you've explored?
Yeah, I mean, so the main thing that you're going to be doing with points is travel if you want to get good value, because you're not going to be able to use these points for purchasing, again, things on Amazon or cash back or gift cards at a good value, right? Mm-hmm. You can do it, but you're kind of wasting the points if you're someone who might travel now or in the future.
Yeah.
But some of the higher end luxury experiences I've had, I mean, I'll just name a few. Emirates first class I mentioned that had, I flew from JFK to Dubai, that had a shower on board. They were serving espresso martinis. It was like unbelievable food. They have a bar on there. I actually just planned a ski trip with 40 entrepreneurs, and we went over to Chamonix, France, and we had about 25 of us fly Emirates business class together. So nice. There's a bar on there. So it was like a networking event in the sky, like a full cocktail lounge kind of thing. It was really cool. So that was one of the most insane experiences for sure. This past Christmas, I was staying in New York City with my girlfriend. We stayed at the Park Hyatt. It's this beautiful 5-star hotel, like right at the base of Central Park. Mm-hmm. And we got upgraded because of the status and how I'm using points to the presidential suite, which is a $30,000 per night room. Wow. It was like a 2,300 square foot apartment, basically. It was unbelievable. Really, really cool. So those are a couple of the good ones. There's certain lounges when you go through, these bigger airports in like Asia and the Middle East. For example, if you fly Qatar Airways first class, you get access to what's called the Al Safa Lounge, and that's in Doha, Qatar. I flew that this past summer, and they have like your own private bedrooms. So I had an overnight layover, and I had a bedroom. There's like a jacuzzi tub, all sorts of cool stuff. So you never really figured in an airport that you'd have like a comfy bed with your own room and like a tub.
Seriously.
Yeah, that's a nice way to recharge in the middle of a trip for sure. Yeah,
that's cool. What's like the future plans for you? You're doing a lot of traveling. You're helping a lot of people. Are you looking to scale this? Are you looking to do more personal travel? What is in store for you?
Yeah, so I always have at least a couple of big trips on the docket. I'm in that stage of life where there's still a lot of like weddings and bachelor party kind of things going on. So those are always the quick hit trips, which are really fun. But right now I am planning a big trip for next year, which will be to Japan for another ski trip. Very likely going to go to the Maldives, which is like this beautiful tiny island in the basically like the Indian Ocean area. And you get overwater villas there. So I haven't done that. And it's a big bucket list trip for anyone that does points. These rooms are like $2,000 to $3,000 a night, and I'll be able to go there for 5 nights on points. So we'll hop over there and we'll fly Etihad first class, which is a airline out of Dubai, or out of the Middle East, out of the Arab Emirates. And so we'll fly on that and then head over to Japan from there, probably do like a week in Thailand or Bali. So I have a couple big trips, but I'm doing less frequency of travel and more like really nice big trips. Slowing down a little bit because we are growing the team and the business. And I've done a lot of, growing the company while kind of doing the digital nomad thing, like traveling a ton, and it's fun and it's definitely doable and effective, but like growing a real sizable team, it's a lot easier to do just being hunkered in one place and then really enjoying the trips more rather than having to be so fast paced. So I did that for about 7 years where I was like really going quick with travel and I loved it. And now I'm moving more into a different season of being a little more stable and then taking bigger, slower trips. So that's kind of what's on the horizon for me.
Yeah, that's cool. Have you ever considered living out of the country, like moving out of the States long term, or like whether it's for a couple of years? Is that something you've considered?
Totally. Yeah, I would. I mean, I studied abroad in Barcelona, so I was there for 5 to 6 months. That's the longest I've been out of the country consecutively. I would definitely go back there, potentially maybe Southeast Asia for a little bit at some point, or maybe somewhere like Costa Rica. But right now I plan to stay in the States for sure. But I would definitely be interested in going back overseas for a period of time. It's not massively high on my bucket list to like live for multiple years in another country right now. I just don't see a place that to me seems like a better option than what I currently have. And I love being in Austin. So we'll see where that goes. That could change, but for the time being, definitely interested in taking some extended, maybe mini stints somewhere, maybe a couple months, but nowhere like super long-term right now.
Yeah, that'd be cool. All right. Well, Eli, any advice you have for anyone listening to this? Let's say they're super interested in this, they want to start pursuing how they can travel better with their credit card points. What if someone does not have good credit right now? They want to improve that. What advice do you have for them for that?
Sure. Yeah. So first is get educated on how credit works, because if you have bad credit, there's a good chance you probably didn't really know what was going on. You made a mistake by accident and you were surprised, like, how did my credit drop like 100 points? So you want to get educated on that. There's all sorts of social media bloggers, social media accounts like mine. There's a ton of my friends that are big in this space are posting stuff all the time. So you can follow that online if you want kind of quick hit information. But ultimately, if you want to piece this together and really do it right, you should create a little bit of a game plan of like, what do you actually want to do? Do you want to fix your credit? Then you want to take a couple of big trips. Like, what do you want it to be? Because the sky is the limit. And it's just basically, you need to set a direction that can then help you understand what kind of information you need to get there, because it's all available. Mm-hmm. So I would suggest social media is a great place to start. You could definitely check out some of the blogs if you want to join like a course. We have courses. There's other people out there that have courses that I would highly suggest you check out, or services and stuff like that. If you're someone who doesn't have as much time and just wants help by someone that knows what they're doing, you should definitely reach out and do some of that stuff, whether again it's with us or other people, because it can save you a lot of time. That was my experience. Again, like I was reading and studying this stuff for years before I decided to be like, to pay, I think it was like $1,000 or something like that to invest in a coach and a course. And when I did that, it was like, I got a $15,000 flight like pretty quickly. So it was a huge ROI for me. So I suggest if you're tight on time and you want results, that's the way to go. If you have more time and you don't want to spend as much money, go do the blog route and the social media route. On the credit piece, particularly, I'll drop one little nugget here for you guys. If you have issues with your credit score, one hack that can really help boost your credit is doing what's called the authorized user strategy. So what this will do, it's pretty cool, is you can get the credit history from someone else's specific card, not their whole credit profile, but just that card. And if they add you as an authorized user, their history from that card will show up on your credit report. So what does that mean? Wow. That means if your parents have a card that's 30 years old, it's got a $20,000 credit limit, they don't use it very much, and it's got 100% on-time payment history, they could add you as an authorized user. And the great part is nothing that you do can impact them, right? The only way this goes wrong for the person adding you is if they actually give you the card and you spend on it, then they are technically liable for the expense for the purchase. But if you're if you're telling them how this works, you can send them links to articles that explain this so they have a little more trust in that. But essentially, you can tell them, hey, don't even give me the card. Like, I don't even want the actual credit card to use it. I just want the history from that account. So they would add you, your average age would get way older. Your on-time payment history would be significant. Your total credit utilization would be much higher. So your ratio of how much you're using will go down, which means your credit score will go up. So that's a great way to build some initial credit. And then you could get some of your own cards and start to build out your own strong credit profile. So that's a huge place to get. And you can just Google this as well, or reach out to someone and say, how does the authorized user strategy work for boosting your credit score? You'll see all sorts of information about it.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really cool. Eli, we talked about success a little bit about at the beginning of the podcast about, surround yourself with more successful people, the networking with travel. How do you define the word success? What does success mean to you?
Success to me means living a life that's really in alignment with what you truly actually want. To me, it doesn't have anything to do with money. It doesn't have anything to do with external things other than it's very authentic to you. So that first to me means getting to know like what is actually authentic and what you actually want, which can be difficult, a lot of times because we have so many inputs that a lot of times it's hard to discern like what's truly me and what I actually want versus what I'm kind of being told I should have so that I can do a certain thing a certain way. And that can be a tricky game. So defining that first and then being able to create a life that actually reflects like what's true and important to you is, to me, that's success. So again, money can be a part of that or not. But to me, it's about having that world look the way that you want it to look.
Yeah, that's a great answer. And I think a lot of people can take a lot of inspiration from this and your story, because if you were to say to someone, my version of success is traveling the world and doing it as cheaply as possible, people would be like, you're crazy. That's not going to work. And like, when you're going to work and all this stuff, all these doubts about it. But for you, you're living it, you're doing it at a very high level and you're helping people on the way. So it goes to show that if this is what you're passionate about, that you could find ways to help people. You can find ways to do it efficiently and gain a ton of experience doing it. So I just want to point out that this is a great learning point for a lot of people that find that passion, find what you want to do, and then figure out how to do it at a high level. And you're going to become successful because that is how you define success.
Totally. I think that's on point, man. That's great advice.
Thank you. What separates you being successful in your field to someone who is not successful? Are there any high performing habits you have, or is there any productivity? Like, what is the thing that differentiates you from those people?
Wow, great question. And I'm in an interesting kind of niche and world because it's like credit card point stuff. So one of the things that happens commonly and for any business, anyone that's starting something out, is I think we end up taking advice from the wrong people. And then we end up getting not where we want to go, really. And one of the things that a lot of people will do when they're starting something is, like, for me, I was starting my business and I was trying to figure out, how do I create a business that can help, business owners? That was my ideal person I wanted to support. And I started asking, like, my friends, my family, other people that were in the points world that weren't that person,
Hmm.
like, oh, would you want to buy this? Like, would you think this is interesting? How would you want to see it? And all the answers they gave me were good for them,
Yeah.
not for my ideal person. And so that was basically, it's not, and it has nothing to do with them being good or bad people. Like, these are like my best friends and family. It's just that that's not the right person for what I was trying to do. And I think in life we end up listening to the wrong people quite a bit. And so I see a lot of people that are kind of in the world that I'm in, and they might be trying to craft things the way they would want them. And it kind of follows the golden rule, like, treat other people the way that you want to be treated.
Hmm.
I kind of think when it comes to business, you should really be thinking, treat other people the way they want to be treated, right?
Hmm.
Like, you need to design things for them, not for the way that you would want it, unless the person that you're trying to help is like a version of you in the past. But for me, that wasn't the case.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really valuable thing that a lot of people kind of miss, that can hinder the success in terms of, specifically in the business sense, of where they're trying to get to. So that's a big one for me.
Yeah. And that's a great point. I think, just to reiterate that for the audience, like, just consider the source of who's giving you advice. Like, Eli, if you're going to someone about travel advice and there's someone that has taken 2 trips their entire life and they've flown, there's 2 hour flights, that's it, they are not the person to go to for advice, and they might hate on you and try to discredit what you're doing because they don't have the experience, they don't have the mindset of what's possible in that space. But if you're to go to someone that's doing 10 times more travel than you, it's a perfect person to get advice from because they've done more, they've achieved travel at a high level. So it's always consider the source. It's not always looking to your friends and your family members for being a mentor, but looking at people that have done it before, people that have experience, people that have success, and learning from them.
Yeah, totally agree. And I think it's kind of funny because there's a lot of advice out in the personal development world, which I don't necessarily agree with, which is like, cut out your old friends. Like, don't listen to this. And maybe
Yeah.
some people, depend on their situation. Like, I grew up around great people for the most part. They didn't necessarily want what I want, but it's not like I had to like cut them out because they were holding me back or anything like
Right.
that. But I think on the same token, like the advice thing, you don't just want to like bury your head in the sand, in my opinion, and just be like, I don't listen to anyone but the people that only have this. You can
Mhm.
hear everything and be open and be considering that. But it's just, who do you want to invest your actual attention into? Like, who do you
Yeah.
want to be the ones that you actually let influence the way that you think, and you have choice over that. So it doesn't mean become a jerk and be like, I don't want to listen to you because you don't have the thing that I have. Like, some people are like that. It's a very repelling a way to approach a conversation
Right.
with someone. But you can hear anyone out and value their perspective and value the way they see the world, and at the same time decide who's actually gonna influence the way that you make decisions. And that, to me, is just discernment, right? That's not about just shutting yourself down and being kind of like standoffish to people because they aren't the people that you want to be around. So that I think is important too, because so many times people get kind of into the personal development world and they end up kind of becoming a little bit arrogant or just a little bit
Mhm.
rude sometimes, because they're trying to, from uh, from a place of just trying to get where they want. They end up, insulating themselves and becoming a little bit closed off to everyone else that's around them. And personally, to me, that doesn't lead to like a very fulfilling life, closing yourself off from people that you care about or people that are around you. So that's just something else I've seen quite a bit, and I thought might be worth mentioning too.
Yeah, for sure. I agree with that. That's a great point. Before before my last question for you, where can people find you on social media? Where do you want them to be redirected to?
Yeah, so the biggest place is just Eli Travel Guy on Instagram. So Eli Travel Guy. I finally got thank God Instagram did the new verification, because I had all these like fake
Oh
scammer
yeah.
accounts that would message people about crypto and stuff.
Right.
Yeah, we've got a good social media following and community there. So definitely check us out there. If you're interested in anything that we have in terms of like courses or mentorship or anything like that, or any of the free mini courses we have, you can go ahead and just DM me the word mini, so MINI. That'll get you access. Our mini course is $50. It'll get anyone that's listening to this for free, or you can go to freedomtravelsystems.com and set up a call with our team or myself on that page too. So that's a way to get in touch. But those are the main places that I'll be hanging out.
Perfect. If this is of any interest to any of you, please feel free to reach out and get in tune with Eli, what he's doing there. My last question for you is, if there's someone listening to this that they need some direction, they're lost, they want to achieve success in life, but they don't know how to get there, what is any piece of advice that you would leave that person with?
Hmm. Well, I'm going to give two pieces. Number one is similar to what we were just talking about, is find people that have the life that you want, not just externally. That's a big trap I think a
Yeah.
lot of people fall into, is like, this person has money in the car, but yeah, they might be like really upset inside and, crushing antidepressants all day because they can't cope with the stress. That to me is not who you want to be listening to.
Yeah.
Find someone who has the internal life and the external life that you think you want, right? Are they really happy? They have an awesome family and they get to do this and they have impact. Like, that to me is what you would call a mentor. Start to understand their journey and see if there's a way to kind of learn from them, or read about them, or read their books, or anything, whoever it may be. The second one, man, it's really just key. Like, we've all had probably highs and lows in our life. And like, there's periods where you can go into depression or have bad anxiety. It's like, just keep your feet moving, because things will change if you let them, and you just keep moving. It's when we stop our feet moving and things start to kind of, especially if you're in like a heavier place, like, man, it can be tough. Like, you can, you want to kind of quit and give up. And those are the times where it's like, just keep going. Things are going to shift. And that's a big piece of advice. I've certainly been there. You probably have in your own life. Like, those are the moments where you really get kind of challenged and tested, and
Yeah.
you keep going. Eventually it opens up, even when it doesn't look like it. So those are the kind of two nuggets I would share from personal experience on what that looks like.
Beautiful advice. Well, Eli, it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on. It was great to learn about what you do and how you do it and all these great travel experiences. I hope everyone kind of gets to draw some inspiration from this and gets to do it themselves one day. So thank you so much.
Thanks, Matt. Appreciate it, man. You asked some great questions. So it was a pleasure jumping on, and can't wait to connect more.
I appreciate it.